And I'll call this meeting to order. Lisa, will you please do the roll call?
Anna Marie Knorr.
Present.
Ben Owens.
Present.
Tori Anderson.
Present.
Joshua Judd.
Present.
Patty Cotray.
Present.
Thank you, Lisa. Will you now join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're now on item 1D, adoption of the agenda. Board?
I make a motion to adopt as written.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Lisa?
Patty Cotray.
Aye.
Tori Anderson.
Aye.
Joshua Judd.
Aye.
Ben Owens.
Aye.
Anna Marie Knorr.
Aye. By a vote of 5-0, we have adopted the agenda as written. I do not have any call the public cards, so we'll move on to item 3. I don't believe we have a superintendent's report today. Item 4, governing board member reports. Is there anything any of you need to add since last week?
Nope.
No? Happy
Nope.
4th of
Happy
July
4th of July.
Eve.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on. We have no information work study, so we'll move on to item 6, our consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Lisa?
Patty Cotray.
Aye.
Tori Anderson.
Aye.
Joshua Judd.
Aye.
Ben Owens.
Aye.
Anna Marie Knorr.
Aye. By a vote of 5-0, we have approved the consent agenda. Action items, 7A, discussion and possible approval of a resolution ordering and calling for a special bond election on November 5th, 2019. And this, of course, is carry forward from our last meeting where we tabled this discussion after lots of discussion. And Dr. Lippman gave a pretty long introduction into this topic last week, so we'll just start with discussion.
President Knorr, if I may.
Sure.
So, yeah, as you said, we had pretty good discussion last week. I spent the past week going back to the folks that signed, some of the folks that signed my petition to be sitting here right now. They're stakeholders in what we've got going, and a lot of them had very pertinent information to specifically to this. Current government leaders within Maricopa, in surrounding areas, and former government leaders in other areas as well. Folks that are very well versed in bonds, that follow them, and everyone that I spoke with the exception of one person, said that they would be absolutely 100% willing to support a $75 million bond because it takes care of the majority of what we need to do. They see the value in it. Some of them thought that we could pass a $75 million bond. Some thought that we could pass a $65 million with much greater ease. But out of all these people that I spoke with, which ended up being about 8% of the people that signed the petitions, the number 68 and 72 million came up again and again and again for just about every single person. Unprompted. And there's some psychology that goes into that $68 million. And I was kind of shocked by that, and I guess I'd never thought of that, to be real honest with you. And, you know, hats off to Mr. Harmon and Dr. Lopman in the past week, especially past few days. They put in a lot of time and getting a lot of questions answered for us. And me being new to all this, I probably have more questions. And so, being we've discussed this, I want to make a motion that we go for a $68 million bond.
Well, before we go on to second, Mr. Owens, when you were talking to those people and they were bringing up the 68 and 72, what was the reasoning behind that? And then my kind of a two-part question that you probably can't answer the second part, but if we did a 72 million, how close is that to getting everything done on our wish list?
So, yeah, the first part of that I can answer. One guy in particular that I spoke with follows bonds very, very closely for his job. Because when bonds pass, he typically gets a sale out of it, so he kind of keeps an eye on what works and what doesn't. He's not involved in any of this in any way, shape, or form. But he said typically, if you've got a number that is under a 0, you've got a higher likelihood of that passing. And same thing with a 5. So if you've got a $74 million bond versus a $75 million, it's just the psychology of that number seeming smaller.
Okay.
Okay? If we take one number away from a 70, I don't want to touch that number because of innuendos, connotations, whatever, that potentially go along with that number. So that's part of the reason that he suggested that 68. And I had some other people that suggested that 68.
So,
And then the second question, do you want Dr. Lopeman?
well, if we did a 68, what do we give up? Because I really don't think we can go back a second time for another capital override or a bond after this. So what can we do with the 68 million?
Well, and I'll ask Mr. Harmon to chime in as well. Our needs are about 100. I'll ask Mr. Harmon to chime in as well. But our needs are, as have been illuminated since the fall, our needs are about 140 million. We know that at the top of that list is a high school. And so we're getting about 25 million from the SFB to help with that.
Right.
A high school is going to be anywhere from 67 million to maybe 70, 75. And every year that we progress, it becomes more and more expensive. So if we get a $68 million bond, we deduct the 25, or we add the 25, and then we deduct, 67 to 75 million for a high school, hoping that everything goes according to plan. And I'd have to use my toes as well to figure that out. But then we start moving into the needs of our buildings that are aging. So we start to move into HVAC systems. We have $4 million in needs of HVAC. We put $2 million right up front into the first year of priority, which leaves another $2 million for the second year, $2 million for the third year. It's really about $8 million in priority. We have roof needs of about $10 million and that's immediate. We have to invest in that. So we're up to about 12 million there. So when you add, what's this, 93 million with a $68 million bond, and then we're still going to have 12 million in HVAC and roof needs for the very first year.
But it would cover that. Correct, yeah.
But a $68 million bond would give us about 26 some million left over,
Yeah.
that we could handle that. But then, and of course, then we're still looking at the weatherproofing that needs to be done. We're still looking at safety needs that we have in every school to take care of communication systems and augmenting front offices, that kind of stuff, and also working on cameras and lighting. Those things are at the front end of the priority. So we would be hard pressed to meet all those needs with, with the amount of a singular bond without any recognition that we're going to have to go back out, or these things are just going to go unfulfilled, unrepaired with any amount that we do.
Correct.
65, 75.
Okay.
So the needs are so great because of where we are in the life cycle of our buildings and needing a high school that it's, that's just the reality of a 68 or 75 or
Okay.
65.
So, say we do 68 and it passes, what does a $68 million high school look like?
Well, we're scheduling a tour for the 23rd, July 23rd. I can't conceptualize that completely for you, but it is a comprehensive high school. It is not it's not a mini high school. It is a comprehensive high school, and we know that's what's attractive here in Maricopa. We know that
So
that's
that will
what people
include-
return to Maricopa for, is the comprehensive high school experience.
So that will include a gym, a cafeteria, labs, would it
Practice
include
fields.
a band room?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Would it,
Yeah.
they would include a small, place for performances, kind of like what we used our lecture hall for before we had our performing arts?
I think that's one of the details that would probably be, obviously, I know we needed extra funding for the PAC as it exists now, so it would be something that is, that kind of fits into that budget.
And do we know approximately how many students, square footage, how many students that this would be able to occupy?
Our starter high school, I think, is about 125,000 square feet, equipped to accommodate about 1,300 kids, right
Okay.
around there. So about double that,
Okay.
about double,
Because you're going to add things that aren't necessarily educational.
Right, right.
So it's going to be similar to the size of the school that we have now, without the performing arts
We're
center.
looking at more acreage. The high school that we have now is 40 some.
Yeah.
So we would, we have a land goal in mind, a vision for the size in mind. And we want our high school to be competitive in terms of in terms of what we can do, what we can offer for the kids of Maricopa and surrounding areas.
Absolutely. Because I know that that's a big thing with us, with the board, is we're making sure that our schools are equitable for all students and families, so that they're not picking one school over the other because they have better amenities and better programs. So, I'm trying to understand all this. Unfortunately, I did not, because I was working all day, did not have the opportunity to really look into all of the additional information that you guys sent this afternoon. So pardon me for all my questions. All right, so if we go this route, we build the school, we have enough money to cover the first year capital expenses. Now, we also have to look at an override, and then we have to look at either a capital override or another bond. Is that correct?
Because of the needs that we have. We have an existing M&O override that helps us with class size. So we're going to have to request that our city continue that override.
And what is the timing on that? I'm looking at the years. So
Yeah.
if we go this November for this bond, what are we looking at in the next few years as far as these other needs that we're going to have to meet, and that we're going to have the community support in doing so?
We have 2 more years before we start to lose the amount of
Right.
the M&O
For
override decreases over 2 years. So next year, we could go out next year and for the continuation there, or in 2021 is our drop dead year to get that continued so that we don't start to lose funding the next year. So we would be looking at 2020 or at the very last opportunity 2021 to continue our override to address class size and other programs in the district.
And
But that
then-
would just be a renewal, it wouldn't be an additional.
Exactly.
Right.
It would be a renewal.
Right.
Correct.
Which
But
actually
that-
might cost less, but yeah.
Yeah.
And as our
then-
city grows, it would cost less because we know it would be shared among.
And then when would you anticipate having to go back for the additional capital that we're going to need for our existing schools?
Again, depending on how we progress tonight, that could be in the next 5-6 years. We know that our capacity changes over the years, and so we're not going to have 60 or 65 or 68 or 75 million on January 1st
Exactly.
anyway. So
Right.
we know that that is a few years out, and depending on how some of those variables play out, it could be as long as 10 years. No one really thinks that that's going to happen, but that is one of the extreme outlying scenarios that we've seen. So we could be at capacity in, say, 5 years and still have needs.
We're always going to have needs.
Right.
That's the nature of the beast, which is
Very
great
true.
because we're an awesome district and this is where everybody wants to be. So we've done our job. It's great. But we're always going to have to keep going back to the voters. So this is not a one-time thing. This is a continuous process. But I do want to throw in that I am hopeful and I have a positive outlook. Maybe that's just the unicorn in me. That I think that our state is going to come through with some additional educational funding, which will help take care of some of those capital needs, those building repairs that may not be covered by this. So I don't want us just to focus that this is a one and only time that we're going to do this. This is a continuous process. And, I want to encourage my fellow board members to meet in the middle. We've got two spectrums, and I would just like to encourage us to meet in the middle and take care of our priorities, which is build a high school. And if there's money left over, great, we can do HVAC.
And
But-
roofing.
And roofing. But I'm just saying, there's things that are prioritized that need to be done. And I think that we can be accountable for the money and do what we need to do if we meet in the middle. And whether that's 65 or 68 or 60, something in the middle would make me very happy. Because you know me, I'm more like, let's do conservative and do 50. But, because we're going to have to keep coming back. So this isn't like, oh yeah, we're going to pass this big one and we're done. No, we're not done. This is a continuous, we're growing. It's a continuous process.
And that is a very good point, Mrs. Anderson.
Absolutely.
We're growing. And so, we're fortunate to be growing.
Yes.
But, I could see at a point in the next 5 to 10 years, we have to build a middle school or an
Absolutely.
elementary school.
And an elementary school.
Which
Yeah.
is going to prompt another bond.
Correct.
Under the current scenario.
Correct.
So, and I want to,
She asked Mr. Judd if he
That's what I was
wants
gonna
to chime in.
yes. Mr. Judd, would you like to make any comments?
Actually, I would. I think that one of our biggest duties is being fiduciary, being being a fiduciary group for the city. When we are going to be taking out money, we have to consider things like what the interest rate is going to look like. Now, no one's going to have a crystal ball and know what that's going to look like when this hits the ballot next year. But currently, we are at record lows for interest rates. The further and further we go out from putting this on the ballot next year, the more we increase the risk of looking at the interest rates which were presented to us when we were given the information earlier. And those numbers, I believe, were in the range of 4.75 to 5.5. And I think he includes that in the presentation because those are historical averages. Currently, the interest rate's at 3.25 based on the information that we received in the email today. I believe that it's in our best interest and in the city's best interest to get the most that we can now at that rate. Granted, no, like I said, no crystal ball. It could be different, by the time this hits the ballot. But I wouldn't imagine it's going to change that much. If it does, say we have to come back, and we didn't get as much as we could have this year, but then we come back, say, 4 years from now, and then we're paying 4.5 or 5.5 as was presented to us in terms of the historical average, we just cost the city money by not making that choice and not going as aggressive as we could now with low interest rates. I know that becomes a mathematical thing, but in terms of what we're doing, I think that that's the most responsible choice. Someone could be conservative now, but it ends up becoming the bad choice 2 or 3 years from now when interest rates increase, and then you end up paying more to that interest rate. So I think that's something that we should be paying attention to. Additionally, the more times in closer succession that we have to go back to the voters and ask for money, the harder it's going to be. The more distance that we have between the times that we ask for this money, the better it will be. So it's in my opinion that we go aggressive and ask for everything that we can get now, as long as we remain under capacity. Capacity is a factor with this as well. We're going to be maxed out here in terms of capacity if we ask for the 75. But we're going to be recouping while we're using that money and then restoring some of that capacity. And of course, like Ms. Anderson said, of course, this is an ongoing process, and we all understand that. But I think it's being fiscally responsible by taking advantage of conditions that we have right now and being aggressive with what we're asking for. We have a big job in front of us of building this new high school. As Superintendent Lotman indicated, we have a lot of additional costs around the bend other than just this high school. So the way I see it is use the market conditions that we have in front of us now, be aggressive, have that money in hand, and it will place some distance between the next time we're going to have to ask the voters for money.
Thank you for your input and for being on the phone. I understand what that's like on vacation. So to follow up with what you said, Mr. Judd, I appreciate that perspective, and I do think you make a good point about the opportunity we have right now with the interest rates where they are and what that means for us. And going into last week's meeting, I just knew I wanted to support a bond for MUSD. I didn't have my mind set on any level, but what is really important to me and became very important to me during that meeting and throughout the week is that we have a united board vote on this matter, because I think it will send a message to the community that we've really considered this, we've worked hard for it, and that we are 100% in full support of whatever we decide today. And I think that's an important message that we need to send. We don't have a lot of time before this election if we pass something today, and I think that anything other than a united board vote is going to be a distraction to our ultimate goal of passing this. And I agree with your sentiments about interest rates and, getting as much as we can. I also understand Mrs. Anderson's concerns about being conservative. I've talked to a lot of community members. I've talked to some teachers who don't support 75. The 75 number, which really concerns me when you couple that with our survey results, which is why I made the motion last week for the 65, because I, more than anything, just want to be successful in this for the high school at the very top of the priority list, for the equity, for the students, to have space and capacity for the students. And so that's really where I am still today, is I would like to see this board find a compromise where we can get a 5-0 vote and get going and hit the pavement. So.
And that's why I went for that. That's part of the reason, I should say, that I motioned for that 68 is
It's in the middle.
well, kind of.
It's towards the high end, but it's in the,
It's
it's,
kind of in the middle, but, I mean, we're not maxing out our capacity, like Mr. Judd had mentioned. You know, and last week, Mrs. Anderson, your big thing was being responsible and to our community, and, you know, by passing a bond, we're being responsible. I think that, you know, I like the $68 million, but I don't know how you guys feel.
Well, I'd like to second that motion, since there's a motion on the floor. So I would like to second the $68 million.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion?
I just wanted to make
Go ahead.
one comment before Mrs. Anderson had seconded, but.
We can still discuss.
Okay, I just want to go against the rules here. You know, some of the people that I've talked to, and many of them are in the more mature category because they're from my church, they're for a bond, but they don't want to, they don't like the repetitive of keep asking for money. And
Yes.
and I've done a little bit of research and gone back and read articles that, you know, from our previous elections and the comments on the social media, and there is a constant message that keeps coming back, says stop coming to us and asking us for money. And there's a reason that we didn't pass an override extension on the first override that we passed, and it took so many years to pass a second override. And I am so grateful for the community that they entrusted us with this, and I think that we've proven to them that we are fiscally responsible with that money, and we've done some wonderful things with it in our school district, and we will continue to do so. But I hear that. They don't want us to keep coming back frequently. They just don't want it. And there's no doubt in my mind that this board is 100% behind building a new high school and going for a bond. It is the dollar amount. And whether it is a 3-2 vote, a 4-1, or a 5-0, whatever the decision of this board, I know that every single board member on this board will support the bond effort. But we still have to be able to vote what we feel is the right amount. And so it's not that if a board member chooses not to vote yes on this motion, it's not that they're not supportive of it. And that's where I'm at right now. It is a tough thing. I don't think that I've had enough time really to research how I would like to have researched this based on this ginormous decision that we are making. And I certainly felt extremely rushed today, so I apologize for that. But that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Any other comments before we vote?
No, I just, you know, looking at the 68, it's close to the 65. And I want to thank Mr. Harmon for getting us what we're paying now on our taxes for the current bonds that we've had out since '06, and putting this amount on top of that. It worries me, but I think it's doable. And I think we need to make a decision and go full force in what this money is going to do, how amazing this district is, and we continue to grow. And that's the message. That's a great thing. So as we grow, our needs are going to increase.
Absolutely. Mr. Owens, is there anything you'd like to say before, or Mr. Judd, before I have Lisa call the vote?
Hello?
Hello.
You there?
Yes?
Did you have anything you wanted, any comments you wanted to make before we vote, or you can explain your vote also, so.
I apologize. Ms. Nora, you're coming through a little bit less clear than the other members, so I apologize for that. I agree with the sentiment that this is a good thing. This is a positive move forward, and regardless of the decision that we make, as Board Member Coutre stated, this is we have to vote our conscience, so discussing the amount is necessary. But and again, we're all behind the construction of the new high school and moving forward. And these are all good things. But there should be some healthy debate in terms of what we're asking for. So we're working that out now. But it sounds like we're coming to a point where it's going to come down to the votes.
Yes. Yes, it is. So, Lisa, would you like to call for the vote?
You want to restate the motion so
Sure.
everybody's clear?
The motion on the table that's seconded is to pass a $68 million bond to be on the November ballot.
Patty Cottrell,
Nay.
Tori Anderson,
Yes.
Joshua Judd,
Nay.
Ben Owens,
Aye.
Anne Marie Noor,
Aye. By your vote of 3-2, we have passed a $68 million bond proposal to the voters. And I want to thank the staff for getting this meeting together on such quick notice from last week. And I know that some of you are supposed to be on vacation right now, but are nonetheless sitting here next to us.
Vacation? What's vacation?
And so I really, really appreciate your willingness to be here and to sacrifice your vacations. So hopefully we won't make this a regular practice. All right.
So do you need to read the agenda item as it's stated about the resolution? Or you're going to insert the $68 million into the second page? Do you need to
Do I need to,
read the agenda item as it's written on the agenda
for this?
for the resolution
8B?
and the certificate?
Yes.
So where it says A,
Yes. So I need to read this.
not the whole resolution, but just inserting,
The 68 million on
approving the
November 5th.
resolution ordering the call for a special bond election in the amount of $68 million. See
Okay, so
what I'm saying?
a resolution
So
that a quorum was present at such meeting. Is that where you want me to start?
no, we
Just
just need to.
7A.
We need to approve
I'm on 7A.
7B by making the motion to approve that agreement with the dollar amount and the date that we're doing that, so that you can fill in the blanks on the paper.
It's on the I'm looking at A.
But we just passed A. We already passed it.
You know, we passed A.
Okay.
And that's what they'll fill in. But B is the same thing. You've got to tell them that we're approving the intergovernmental agreement with Pinal County for that dollar amount on the special election date.
Yes, so we're now on to 7B, which is the intergovernmental agreement with Pinal County. And what it states is that this agreement is entered into this third day of July 2019 between Pinal County, a political subdivision of the state of Arizona, hereinafter referred to as county, and Maricopa Unified School District Number 20, hereinafter referred to as district. And it says, whereas ARS allows public agencies to contract for services and enter agreements, states a lot of whereases, that the purpose of the agreement is to secure the services of the county for the preparation and conduct of a $68 million bond election to be held November 5th, 2019.
And is that your motion? That's your motion, right?
No, I said this is
No,
the,
no, that's your motion,
Okay, that's my
right?
motion.
I will second that motion.
that's my motion. And it's been seconded by Mrs. Cottrell. Lisa?
Patty Cottrell,
Aye.
Tori Anderson,
Aye.
Joshua Judd,
Aye.
Ben Owens,
Aye.
Anne Marie Noor,
Aye. By a 5-0 vote, you have passed 7B. At least I got one 5-0 vote.
You get two in a minute.
We are now on item 8, adjourn. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Lisa?
Patty Cottrell,
Aye.
Tori Anderson,
Aye.
Joshua Judd,
Aye.
Ben Owens,
Aye.
Anne Marie Noor,
Aye, by your vote of 5-0. You have approved to adjourn the meeting. It is 7:05 PM. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, Josh.
Have a good night, guys.
Bye, Josh. Have a
Good time.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Why is this not?